All right, thank you for joining us for Staying Alert with Christian Overcomers. And today we're going to discuss wolves in sheep's clothing. You know, someone who pretends to be on our side but who really isn't is more dangerous to us than legions of our avowed enemies. Why is that? Well, because people put their trust in them. They don't understand what they're really up to. And for too long now, we as a nation have trusted that our political and religious leaders have had our best interests in mind while they're leading us down the path of destruction. And an example of that is a leading American socialist, Norman Thomas, once said that the American people will never knowingly adopt socialism, but under the name of liberalism, they will adopt every fragment of the socialist program until one day America will be a socialist nation without knowing how it happened. Marcus, what are your thoughts on this and what this quote is saying here?
I mean, my first thought is that this Norman Thomas guy was right on the money, because that's exactly, what we're seeing today.
Mm-hmm.
Through or under the guise of liberalism, they are ushering in socialism. Just in not even the last 2 years, they have socialized over 50% of our country.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was healthcare, the auto industry, or banking industry with AIG, and so forth. But he's exactly right.
And if you go back even into the 1950s,
sure,
we see this whole thing step by step.
Baby steps, yep.
And that's when this Norman Thomas, he said this somewhere in the 50s or 60s. He died in 1968, so I mean, this has been going on for a long time now.
Right.
But Matthew chapter 7, verse 15, I guess that's where we'll kind of build our foundation of this discussion upon. Where Christ tells us about wolves in sheep's clothing. Let us read there, and we'll pull up the verse for you on the screen there. Matthew chapter 7, verse 15, Christ said, "Beware of false prophets, false teachers." You could even include the political people in this as well, because political leaders would fit in this category of a leader, a teacher, etc., which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. So what is he saying here? Mark, what do you think he's saying here?
Well, I mean, there are people who are out there deliberately trying to deceive people, but they can't do it. They can't just come out and say what they're trying to do. They need to put on a mask.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, I mean, this is a proverb that Christ was teaching. You think of sheep, right? And they're in their flock out in the field or whatever. A wolf can't just walk up to them, because the sheep are going to run away. They know who the wolf is. But if the wolf dresses up and, covertly comes in and is like, "Hey, I'm one of the sheep," he has a much better chance of eating those sheep, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And that's what's happening today. And I guess the best example we can think of today is President Obama. He came in saying he wants to bring hope and change and making it really look like he's on our side, like he's for us, for the middle class. You hear that all the time. But if you look into him a little bit more, into his character, and who his teachers were, what his philosophies were growing up, even until he became president, you find that he doesn't have America's best interest. He wants to destroy America and all that it was founded upon, and I guess that's the best example I can think of.
Right. We're really finding out, he ran his whole campaign on hope and change, and now we're finding out what that change actually is. It hasn't even been 2 years yet. So
that's true. And, what Christ said here, he said, "Beware of false prophets." Beware of these wolves that come to you, in sheep's clothing, but who are inwardly ravening wolves. We're supposed to be on guard against these type of people, whether it's in our religious communities, our political leaders, and so forth. And that takes a little bit of investigation, a little bit of diligence, searching out the matter, not just listening to what somebody says. Because that's what happened when Obama was running with his, bumper slogans, hope, change, and all those types of things. People just looked at those words and believed him. They didn't pull off his mask to see who he really was. Well, I guess, many of us did, but enough didn't, to the point where he got elected. We let the wolf enter into the sheep pen, and now he's step by step destroying America as we know it. And it's we're seeing it happen.
Right. And, we brought up Obama as, an example, but on the same note, there's also people even within the conservative movement or even
Rhinos, yeah.
Rhinos, yeah, exactly. They put that mask on as though they're for what the people want, and they're lying to them.
Yeah.
They're flat out lying. But there's also people in the church as well. There's false teachers. There's pastors that aren't teaching, the flocks the Bible. So
a good example of that I can think of is, I visited many churches where the pastors say, okay, we're going to get into our teaching today, and he reads like just a couple verses, and then he's talking about something almost, completely out of context,
right,
or making it seem like it's in context, but it's not. So you're going there thinking, well, yeah, he's got my best interest in mind. He's my religious leader, my religious teacher. I trust him. He's a good guy.
right.
But well, I guess many of those people do it in ignorance, but there are those who purposely come in to try to destroy Christianity. They've worked into many of our seminaries, have become translators on some of translators, or on the board of translators for many different Bible translations today. I can think of one in particular where there's no doubt in my mind there's purposeful errors in there to try to hide or cover over or destroy knowledge. And we're supposed to be on guard against that, and that's what Christ said. We need to be alert. That's why we titled these series of prophecy discussions, "Staying Alert." Like Christ said, beware, be on guard, be vigilant. Anything else you want to say on it, or should we just read the next verse here?
Yeah, let's just read the next verse.
All right, verse 16. He says, "You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles?" So that's a question that a lot of people have, is how do I know who to trust? Who do I listen to? How do I know that this politician is saying what he means and means what he says? Well, the simple answer to that is look at their actions. Look at their voting record. See what they're actually doing. See what they're actually voting for. Or in Obama's case, look and see what he's really done in the past.
Right.
He doesn't have much of a voting record from what I've understood.
Yeah, he just voted president half the time. But one thing you actually mentioned it before. You look at like who his teachers were, and kind of where he got his ideology from, if you will. And there's a picture that people can find. But Obama in Chicago, he was teaching a course on the book by Saul Alinsky called Rules for Radicals.
Yeah.
And that book alone in the cover is actually dedicated to Lucifer himself.
Wow. And that's that example there. Just you're just kind of pulling off the mask, which if people had done that during the last presidential election, he wouldn't have been voted in. But
people have no idea who Obama was, as he was elected, and people even turned a blind eye to him just because they thought it looked so hope and change, great, it looks so good, and it wasn't.
Yeah. So I guess when you're bringing up some of those examples, you could think of one of these wolves in sheep's clothing. What do? Well, they sit around and they have their beliefs. They want to destroy America. So what do? They sit and plan how they're going to do it, but make it look like they're actually for us. And that's who Obama is. I mean, we keep going back to him because he's the best example, the leader of this nation and the leader of the Democrat Party at this time.
Right.
Or the Socialist Party, I should say. Democratic Socialist Party. But that's how the wolves operate. And they spin their words, they reorganize their sentences in so many different ways so that it makes it look like, hey, I'm with you, buddy. I'm right there with you. But just don't look underneath my mask and see who I really am. Because when you start trying to pull that mask off, and boy do they get upset. They want to stay hidden. It's kind of reminds me of how a snake operates. It's it always wants to hide under the rocks and not be seen, and that's just how they operate. Which brings into mind these wolves in sheep's clothing. This is understanding and pulling off the mask to see who's really underneath their disguise is part of counting the number of the beast. That's what counting the number of the beast is identifying who your enemy is, what he's up to, and how you're going to protect yourself from being deceived or by him. But let's read into the next verse here. He says, "Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit." Verse 18, "A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit." Well, what is he saying there, Mark? What would your explanation be here?
Well, I mean, but when you look at what people do, you can look at what the result of whatever that, whatever it was that they were doing, you can see the results of what came from it. And, if you're seeing bad results, if you're seeing, oh, we're going to go and spend all this money and, borrow, billions of dollars from China, and the unemployment rate and all these, from a financial aspect or an economic aspect, and they're raising taxes and whatnot, and you're seeing the unemployment rate go way up.
Yeah.
That's not good fruit.
Exactly.
They're supposed to be doing things that are going to help unemployment rate go down and fix our economy.
Well, I guess building off of what you're saying there, I've heard, there are many quotes from Obama and other democratic socialists that say, in order to save us from depression, the government needs to spend more money.
Right.
I mean, that's an example, I guess, of evil fruit. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
How is spending more money going to dig you out of a hole? You know what that does, actually? It does exactly what the wolf intends it to do. It digs your hole even deeper. Hey, I'm coming to save you. While they keep digging and keep digging,
Absolutely.
digging to devour.
It's kind of a little bit off topic, but I just heard the other day that Obama actually came out and said, when he was giving a speech to people, that people that don't agree with him are enemies, and that those people should actually be punished.
I heard that too.
It's crazy.
He must not have had his teleprompter there when he said that.
Yeah, probably not. Or maybe he did, and he thought that it wasn't going to get out.
But yeah, that lets you look into who he truly is
Right.
underneath that mask. He wants to punish those who stand up for freedom, those people who want to stick to the Constitution. They don't want this false change. We want to get back to the principles which have made our nation great. And he doesn't want that. He wants to destroy. And, well, was there another verse here that we should go to? It says, verse 19, it says, every tree that bringeth forth not good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits you shall know them. And that's how we do it. We have to we have to investigate. We have to do our research. We have to see who people really are rather than just believing them. And that has been, I'd say, one of the biggest downfalls of our people when it comes to election time is these people who vote for these liberals and these socialists, they really honestly think many times that these people have their best interests in mind, and they trust them. But they do so in their ignorance because they haven't been aware. Like Christ said, beware. Mm-hmm. Be vigilant. Be on guard. And, well, I guess looks like we're running out of time here. So we wanted to do this discussion because we do have elections coming up here in a few days. And it's always important that we do our homework, that we know who these people are and what their true intentions really are. Are there people who vote, or are there political leaders who want to do the opposite of what we believe, but yet think it's in our best interest? Yeah, absolutely. But there are also those, like President Obama, who come in with one purpose, and that is to destroy. So be on guard, stay alert during this election year. Thank you for joining us.